All right. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Traumaplicity talk show. That is trauma plus simplicity equals traumaplicity, meaning that we can have our brain think of simple steps to overcome traumas and really looking at that. And so my name is Dr. Amanda Hellman. I am an author, mindset coach, and speaker. And I really am passionate about having different people on to share their stories that can impact your life. And today I'm really grateful. And Lynn and I were just talking. We have a common friend, Craig Miller. Just want to shout you out. And he has a new emotional healing little guy coming out. But he connected me, and I'm just so honored to have Lynn Eldridge. She's a guest on the show today. And she was raised in the church, but at about the age of 15, she had bipolar disorder diagnosis, eating disorders, and addiction began to take over her life. After 35 years of a life of devastation, she felt like life wasn't worth living. Friends prayed for her. And then soon after after her release from a mental institution in 2011, she had a powerful encounter with God and got set free. Lynn, that's amazing. So Lynn is, she's an itinerant speaker, restoring the foundations, inner healing, and deliverance minister. And she travels on ministry trips frequently and is ordained with Global Awakening. So Lynn, it is amazing and wonderful to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm honored. I'm grateful that Craig connected us.
Absolutely. And so on this journey, I know you in your bio, it had a lot about your journey, but if you could share part of your story of trauma with our audience, that would be wonderful.
Yes. And one of the things I didn't know how to do was even identify certain types of trauma as trauma. So, growing up, I suffered a lot of chronic ongoing trauma from just not being held, not being loved, not being nurtured, not being supported. I mean, I think we tend to minimize that not all trauma is brutal, violent trauma. Sometimes it's the trauma of not getting what a child needs, how God ordained a mother and father to love on a child. And when the parents are broken, they can't give what they don't have. Mm-hmm. Right. So I had a little bit of both, but mostly it was because I was conceived out of wedlock and I wasn't really wanted. And that was the message I got, even though I didn't know what I was getting. I know today how that hinders development of the brain and even the joy center, but this is a generational thing, right? Mm-hmm. My grandmother really was an orphan and she was horrifically abused. So she did the best she knew how. But the culture of our family doesn't always mirror the kingdom's culture and the way God set things up. And so therefore, my mother was super strict, and super strict parents can raise rebellious children. That's kind of the way it goes. So at one point I got tired of trying to be a good girl, even though we were raised in church, and my dream was not to grow up and be a bipolar drug addict. My dream was to grow up and be loved and love God and be a dancer, And actually I was a dancer, and I would go to schools and dance 4 to 6 hours a day around, junior high at School of the Arts, because I was talented. And that's when I started doing the comparison of body types. And that's when bulimia, my first disorder, kicked in. In junior high, I wasn't, bulimia wasn't popular back then. And I didn't learn it from a magazine or a television show or some buzzword. It's a real problem. And, but when I got into high school, I found there were other things that could help with that. I started rebelling because I could never please get the love or acceptance that I needed.
Mhm.
At least that was my perception. I've also learned that perceptions can be real or imagined, right? Not all my trauma was as real as it ended up growing in my head to be through the lens of unforgiveness and pain, if that makes sense. So I started, with that unforgiveness, that brokenness, that torment. I had to start medicating that pain. And then, if I was skinny enough, which of course, I was taking ballet 4 to 6 hours a day. I was body fat was 0, but it was never enough because I was seeing through distorted lenses, and darkness always distorts the truth of even what you look like. So I always saw myself as obese at 105 pounds, right? And then I got into high school and found a drug, speed. And speed would curb my appetite. So there's the habit of looking for something outside of me to fix something that was broken on the inside that only God could heal. But we didn't have the tools. I went to church. I rebelled. I got involved in more and more drugs, sex, drugs, rock and roll. We'd rent hotel rooms, on weekends, and I'd go into the hotel room and I was so angry and I was so devastated. And I'm not proud of this, but this is how angry I was and how merciful God is. I would take the Bible and throw it out the window before the party. I didn't even remember that. So God, in his mercy, I understand being kissed by mercy. But, the more you feed anything, the more you sow, the more you reap. The more you feed it, the more you grow. It grows. And one day, at the age of 17, I graduated from high school early, and I got involved with some guys that were hanging around the high school to sell drugs, and they were closer to 30. And I came to realize that if you buy in bulk, it's a better deal. And after I got out of high school, I started going down to Florida with large suitcases full of money and bringing drugs back to Illinois. And one day I get a phone call after a really bad night out with some really bad people, and I got hurt. And I wake up the next day and I see an unmarked car going around the house. And I'm going, I'm in trouble now. And the phone rings. Back then it was landlines, and it was my mother. And she goes, we need to talk. Come over now. So I'm like, oh, shoot. And when I got there, she said, because you're a minor, the FBI is giving us one chance to get you out of here before your little drug boys go to prison. And they will either kill you before or after you get into prison. But the FBI, because you're a minor, is giving us one chance to get you out of town. We'll put you where they will never find you. And I'm like, that, where's that? She goes, a Bible college. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. So do not pass go. I was on a plane and landed in Tulsa and went to Oral Roberts University that afternoon, met my aunt who lived in Oklahoma City. She drove in, and the power of God landed on me on that campus. Nobody was preaching. Nobody was saying a word. It was just the love of God. And he set me free instantly from addiction and everything. And all I wanted to do in a matter of a minute was turn my life around and serve Jesus. The school was already, the enrollment, it was already into the middle of a semester. So I went to Oklahoma City and lived with my aunt. I got a phone call one day, and it was from some people back home. They said, we know where you are and we're coming for you. And I put the phone down and I had peace, and nobody ever came, obviously. But I lived with my mother's sister, and our ways were not the ways of God. doesn't matter how often you go to church, right? So unforgiveness was offense, bitterness, the word curses coming from our mouths, the judgments, the dishonor. And little by little, I ended up graduating, but I graduated bipolar, bulimic, with I'd go to hotel rooms not to party, but to kill the pain all by myself, trying to get rid of the torment. And so I moved to Dallas, walked into a bar named Cowboys, met a cowboy, and guess what? He was a cocaine dealer. So the cycle started all over again. I thought Jesus was powerless, but it's my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Hosea 4:6. So I ended up moving on, going to Chicago, eventually getting involved with the same group of people, you know, except for they were a rough crowd up there, you know, a little bit of mob, a little bit of politicians, a little bit of priests, a little bit of hitmen, a little bit of judges, and a lot of trouble. So I ended up moving to India and Bangkok, Thailand. I thought I could outrun my problem, which I thought was on the outside of me, but everywhere I went, there I was. And my brokenness came with me. I ended up leaving India, going to a treatment center, and I was okay talking to God, but I was still mad at Jesus. So I got to get sober, but I got to keep all the other mental disorders. And I was told, you know, that my biggest problem was right between my ears. And it certainly was. But eventually I got offended again, went into the same generational patterns, familiar stuff. And little by little, reopened all those doors again. Started self-medicating again, and ended up in a mental institution trying to figure out how not to kill myself. And they couldn't help me. You know, you can't cancel demons, or there aren't enough drugs. There's not an answer on the outside of me that can fix the brokenness on the inside. It's just, it's not in a pill. It's got to be in forgiveness is the biggest key. And the person I hated the most was myself, right? I came into agreement with a lot of critical words I heard all around me growing up. Maybe there were some attaboys and good things said about me, but you know what hurt? Stuck. And that's what I saw my life through. And I finally came into agreement with it. You're right. I am a nobody. I am a loser. I am weird. There's something wrong with me. I am stupid. No, I'll never amount to anything. And I internalized all that and believed every word of it, and to the point of self-hate and self-destruction. You know, of course, trauma always opens the doors to that. And there was plenty of it. So even though it looked really good on the outside, you know, we lived in a decent house in a decent neighborhood and had a decent business and this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I heard an analogy once where a teacher took an apple and she would bang the apple on the desk. And she said, that's what insults, bullying, critical words, insults, blaming looks like. And she cuts the apple in half. It looked fine on the outside, but on the inside, it was all brown and bruised up. And, you know, you can dress it up any way you want to, but pain is pain. And it's very real. And the only, you know, I went into New Age, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and alcoholism. There wasn't enough isms anywhere I could find to kill the pain. And I was so mad at Jesus, but he in his mercy, when I get out of the mental institution, they didn't want to let me go. I asked my cousin Chris if he would go with me to get some help somewhere treatment center or something. And he said, no, he was a heroin. He had some heroin issues, and so did his son. They're both unfortunately dead. Um, but he said there's a healer at a local church. And I'm like, Jesus. But I was desperate enough that I went, and the guy called me out and he goes, I see depression from childhood and addiction. And I said, yes, yes, I do. So I didn't find what I needed that night, but somebody put a card in my hand to a local healing room. And 2 weeks later, I figured I got to do something. And I went in there, and this woman came through this little door and said, Jesus told me you were coming. And he wants you in the prayer room. Her name was Vicky. Heard from her the other day. She put on a song. She said, Jesus told me to play this song for you. And it's called Sit With You a While by Dennis Jernigan. I'm broken though I'm dying. No one can help me. And the walls came down. They prayed for me. I felt the love and power of God. And I'm like, all right, God, one more time. I'll give you all I got one time. Let's go big or go home. One of us is going to end this thing. If you don't kill me, I will, But I thought that God was angry and judging and punishing and critical and condemning and finger pointing and blaming and expecting perfectionism. And I had a woman say to me, is that God or is that you? Mm-hmm. So basically, I was imprinted with a lot of that stuff, whether it came from the church or not. Some of it may have, it's that religious thing. I saw I had a book title once. The subtitle said Jesus, Stranger to Self-Hate. And I'm like, interesting, because religiousness says you're not good enough, you'll never measure up, and if you did better, and da 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 da. And I learned today it's not because I'm good enough, it's because he's good enough, right? It's not because I deserve it, it's because he deserves it. It's not because I'm worthy, it's because he's worthy. So there. It's been quite a journey. I've gotten a lot of prayer and counsel, and like I said earlier, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I've learned some spiritual tools. I've learned the ways of the kingdom. I'm learning the ways of God. And I haven't arrived, but I probably won't on this on this planet. But I think King David summed it up in Psalm 119. 176 verses, the longest book of the Bible. And he said, God, show me your ways. I need to know your statutes. Show me your commandments. I need your laws. I need your precepts. I need them, because God's not a rule-making God. He knows the only way we were created to function was the way he designed us, and that's to love and be in love. Watch our words, watch our attitudes, watch our behavior. Anything else opens the door to darkness. It's not because he's punishing us. It's because we open our big mouths. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
So that's the long and short of it.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And thank you, Lynn, for sharing the whole history, just thinking of when you were a kid, and as you said, like your family, that they didn't know perhaps some of the things that were generational or familiar, and just the different patterns and word curses and the things you heard that made you think this is who I am. And even going into all the different things you did, right? The drugs, the eating disorders, getting set free, then coming back into it with all that different stuff. And then finally in 2011, after all this, Jesus saying, I'm bringing her back, to me. I'm going to show her my love. And I just love that love story, because twice you said it's his love that draws us in. His love draws us into a changing the way we think. His love draws us into change. And as you said, it is an ongoing journey, but because of everything you've gone through, you've learned, you've had the experience, and then you can also, because you've been set free, other people, whether you're listening in or hearing this story, can be set free. So it's very powerful. And I know, like, usually I ask some things that you do, right? Like some things that are helpful tools, and everybody on here, the audience may or may not be believers or not, or on a journey, I would say.
Amen.
What are your top 3 things that happened that changed you? And you kind of named some, but maybe 3 for the audience. Maybe if they're going through this, maybe some of them have been in mental institutions, they're not going, they're struggling with different depression. They just don't know what to do. What would be 3 things you'd recommend for them?
Well, number 1, number 2, number 3 are all tied to forgiveness. Forgiving everybody, everything, and anybody, anything. It doesn't mean what was done to us may have been right, and maybe we had a right to be angry and hold offense, resentment, but that doesn't mean I have to go be buddy with someone that was like brutal to me. But it does mean I need to clean up my heart on my side of the fence if I want to be free. I remember seeing somebody that I couldn't stand, and they said, I've for years, and she goes, really, I haven't thought about you at all for years. Mm-hmm. So it was taking up space in my head and destroying my life and distorting my views. And now not only do I see her that way, but I see you that way. And now you're just like, and then I start making judgments. All women are, or all men are, or whatever. And my perception is my reality, whether it's real or not. Did you see the way she looked at me? Did you see that? Well, maybe she didn't look at me at all. Maybe she didn't see me. The one instance when that happened, I found out the woman's mother was in the hospital dying, and she was in so much emotional pain. She literally did not see me. So I don't know what's going on with the other person. It's not about me, and it never has been, And what I've also learned is I need to change my thinking. Mostly the way I see you and the way I perceive God or other situations is the way I perceive myself. So I was really hating me. You're a reflection of the mirror of my own mind. It is, if people believe in God or don't believe in God, I don't know of another way to heal than to receive love. And self-love has been really key for me. I didn't realize the dialogue I was having with myself, even pushing the wrong garage door button on my visor. Oh, you pushed the wrong one again. How stupid.
Yeah.
Or carrying some groceries. Drop that bag. Stop. And I'm hard on myself. And I had to learn to change my dialogue. And, I get to say to myself today, I love myself. I love you, Lynn. I used to say, I hate you. Mm-hmm. It's not an egomania thing. I'm kind of delightful today because I've changed the way I think. I've replaced thoughts. And it's not about just getting rid of thoughts. It's about overcoming negativity with the truth, which I am worthy. I do deserve. I am qualified. I do have a voice. I am here for a reason. I will fulfill my destiny. This race I will finish, and I will finish strong.
Yeah, those are powerful. I mean, I like the forgiveness. And for some of you out there, we have the heart to forgive sometimes, but then there's just to add to what you said, there's the forgiveness that you have the emotions you don't even realize are there tied to events, and then so you think it's done. So just know that the Lord, God will always bring it up, and like if there is a journey with forgiveness, I believe, like you could say you are and you have the will for it, but then there is some time because of the emotions, and that goes with the changing the way you think. Absolutely, it's huge to do that. But when we're only know negativity, be kind to yourself because it takes time to unravel. And as Lynn had some powerful I am statements, which are really quotes to encourage you, that saying that you are, sometimes we don't believe it, but knowing you're worthy, you're loved. And again, as we heal, those things become true. We start to say it and believe it and walk in it. You have a destiny. So I love that, Lynn, that you shared those power statements for the audience, wherever you are, that's true, that everything she was sharing about herself is for you. And so I know we're getting near the end of this amazing, love to probably could spend hours just going back and forth with our journey. So I probably at some point will probably talk to you and set up that. But what I know you wrote a book, and that's what I put on the thing. And so can you share and show them your book and perhaps let them know where to get that and the other exciting news that you just shared with me about the Bible app?
Yeah. I wrote this book, Bipolar to Beloved, because I'm worthy of love and I'm lovable and lovely, and so are you, and so that transformed me. And I also I'm grateful. I write some things. I wrote my journey. I also wrote some steps in here on how I received a lot of my healing, or where I began. And then I do believe a lot of this is a spiritual journey. And I did bring up a lot of different religions that I studied and chase. But what I found out at the end of the day is when people talk to me, I say, well, if your God can't do this for you, you're welcome to borrow mine. This has done this for me. If he'll do it for me, he's no respecter of persons. He'll do it for you. As for me and my house,
Lord,
who you want to serve, right?
Yeah.
But I also have a little course called Time for a Turnaround. It's on my website, lynneldridge.com. And I'm really grateful that YouVersion Bible reading app has just I did a 5-day Bible reading plan, and that should come out December 9th.
Exciting. Coming up.
Time for a turnaround, right?
Yeah.
So there's more links there. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'll be posting that. So after I listen to that, we'll be posting Lynn's website, so you can check her out, and also look at the Bible app coming out December 9th. I'll put that information on the link after I post this tonight. And certainly if you want to get in contact with Lynn, that would be the way, the website, or post a message. I'm sure she'll see it. Lynn, this has been an absolute delight. I loved hearing your story and where you are now, and just the rawness of everything that you can relate to people. And I love your tips of forgiveness, and even going on Changing Way to Think, and the book. It's definitely on my list of getting, and during, now that all my classes are over, I am going to be reading quite a bit, and it'll be exciting to hear your journey. So certainly, Lynn Eldridge, everyone, if you watch this, we'd love to hear your feedback. Please go to her website. And certainly, as always, you're amazing people out there. We love you on this journey called life, and please keep going. So any final words, Lynn?
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this is on Amazon.
Yes.
But my heart, like yours, Amanda, is to help people live a better, full, their highest life.
Absolutely.
So bless you. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone watching. And again, you're amazing. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock on Traumaplicity. Take care.